Hello and welcome. My name is Bashir Fadl, and on behalf of LearnITCoursesOnline.com, as well as LearnJobsOnline.com, I'd like to thank you. We do know that you have a variety of choices of IT training, and you've chosen us, so we really appreciate that and hope that you enjoy it. Thank you. Studying the job description, it's very important to study the job description and make sure that we stress it in our interview as well as in our resume. And those are some of the things that we're going to talk about. And I'll give you an example of one time where we had a position in a company that paid very good. And I remember when we posted it, we waited for days, for weeks, for even months, a couple of months, and nobody applied for that position. So I went to HR and asked them, did anybody apply for this? I'm really surprised because the pay is very good, it's very competitive, and it's a great opportunity. Apparently what happened is the way we described it was with a technical term. So we're looking for a database administrator, but one of the highest focus that we needed is someone that worked with what's called PL SQL in Oracle databases, which is a procedural language that allows you to do certain things in building your store procs. We received about 5 or 6 resumes that were outstanding with people that had years and years of experience, even more than what we're looking for. However, instead of using the letters PL SQL, they use generic words such as store procedures and triggers and so on. So to the person that reviewed it, to the HR person, to the untechnical person that procedurally would look at the resume before we do, they did not approve of those resumes and forwarded to the hiring manager because they were looking for keywords in the job description. They did not find those keywords. They discarded the resumes. When I looked at it, I said, wow, this is exactly what we're looking for, even better, because I saw the keywords, but those people, for example, failed to highlight it. So those are the kind of things that we're looking for in the job description. We don't want to miss on a detail or lack emphasizing a detail that might really put us in the right direction. We want to make sure that our resume and our interview are perfect, and the job description is the master key that helps us get there. It's one thing to go to a test, you prepare as much as you can, you go in and try to memorize all the formulas and equations that you need. It's something else when the instructor says, oh, by the way, it's an open book, or you can have all the equations in a little cheat sheet. Makes it much easier and a lot more convenient. Similarly, the job description is the master key to the interview that we have. In other words, the job description tells us pretty much everything that they're going to ask us about in the interview. That's why it's important for us to study the job description and focus and zoom in on certain areas that we're about to discuss here with you. The job description translates to my resume and to the interview. There's a relationship between them. So usually a job description starts with a summary or a day-to-day activities description of that job description. So according to that, in the interview, that's what I want to start with. That's what I want to focus is making sure that I elevate the skills that I have, highlight the skills that I have that match the summary that they have or the day-to-day activities they have, starting with that. Similarly, on my resume, I usually have a summary at the beginning. So the summary that they have in their job description or the day-to-day activities, I want to make sure that that's highlighted in my resume. Summary and day-to-day activities. Make sure you go through that in detail and that you're aware of each and every single point that's in there. When applying for a job, usually there's a certain order that we have mentally. So for example, if I'm applying for a developer, I might want to highlight certain steps of things that I do, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If, for example, I'm a database administrator, then I want to focus on things such as security, optimization, store procedures, and so on. However, the order might differ from one job to the other. In one job, they have a major problem with performance and database optimization, while the other one, they're more interested in reports and dashboards and PL SQL or T-SQL procedures. What do I need to do is look at the order of items that they have in the job description. And if they start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then 2 things. In the interview, I want to focus and highlight and start with 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Similar to on my resume, I might have a certain order, but I need to go back and reshuffle it when I'm applying for that job to make sure that I reorder my talents in terms of what they highlight and the order that they place as their top priority. So I would go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. That's very important because when they're looking at the resume and comparing it to a lot of other candidates, usually they're looking for certain keywords and they want to see those keywords first. So you want to make sure you highlight them and put them up front in the very beginning. A job description requires 10, or there's 10 bullet points in there, 1 through 10. Bullet number 1 emphasizes, and let's assume that it's for a business intelligence developer, the importance of dashboards and reports. Bullet number 4 again mentions the word dashboards and reports. Bullet number 8, the importance of stakeholders, business holders, vice presidents, to which you would be developing and designing and automating business reports and dashboards. So now that I've seen this repeated in more than one bullet point, that's what we call a repeated word. In other words, this is something that's very important that I need to stress in the interview and that I need to reiterate and stress in my resume as well, to make sure that you highlight it, to make sure that you give examples of it, whether in the interview by giving examples and stories and the value of what you've done with it, as well as in your resume where you pinpoint it, you start with it, and you also give examples, detailed examples, more than the other points as well. A lot of times when it comes to technical skill, we make a big mistake. We're asked, do you know this or do you know that? And the answer is yes. Well, yes, by itself is not an answer. The second thing that a lot of people attempt to do is explain, and explaining is not an answer. What do I mean? Usually when you're applying for a position, we're looking for experience. So experience means two things. It means, yes, I've worked with it. And it also means giving an example of something that you've actually done. Not just saying that, well, I know that this technology or this feature means that you can do 1, 2, 3. That's hypothetical. That's in college. But when you have work experience, you say, yes, and I've used it building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or yes, I've used it to automate this process that helped our business in doing this, which benefit this team, which was greatly enjoyed. And so basically, yes by itself or an explanation of what it does is not an answer. It's yes, and give an example of how you did it, because that exhibits that you have experience. And what we're looking for is someone with experience. So when I find a point, and for each line, every bullet point in the job description, I need to make sure that I don't just say yes, because yes by itself is not an answer, that I know it. And I don't just give an explanation because they already own that technology. They already own that service. They're not looking for me to explain it. They already know how it works, but they're looking for me to have experience. And so I don't just say yes and explain how it works. Yes is not an answer. Yes and explanation both are not an answer, but yes and give an example of the value is what the full answer is. So for each line, have a response and share an example of work. What does that mean? It means that before the interview, before finalizing things with the recruiter and setting up that interview, I want to make sure that I go through all the bullets. So if this job has 10 points, I want to go through all the 10 bullet points one by one and make sure that I'm able to check, yes, I've worked with it, and I'm able to give a story or an example from my experience that I did. And if there's something that I haven't worked with, especially if you're in the field of IT, one thing that's nice is a lot of technologies you can download for 30 days. And so you can download it for free, play with it, experiment with it, and be able to give a story of something that you actually did with it, rather than, and you know that it's a required thing that they're looking for, rather than just saying yes or I'm aware of it. You want to be able to explain something. So if you have a good opportunity that you're applying for and it's something that you haven't worked with, especially with technology where you can download the trial product, please take the time. It's worth it to download that product and play with it and be able to demonstrate an example in an interview. So remember that yes, or giving an explanation is not an answer. An example of what you have done and how it benefit the business is the full answer. One thing that's important is to read the teams that you support from the job description. For instance, if I'm going to be a Salesforce administrator and developer, chances are I report to the vice president of IT or the manager of IT, but I also work closely with the vice president of sales and marketing, and I work closely with the sales and marketing teams. chances are when I go to the interview that there's going to be someone from the IT department that I report to, but there might be a member or manager from the sales and marketing team. So now I'm already prepared just by reading that title to be able to show the value and the great work and collaboration and enjoyment that I have working with the sales and marketing team. Yes, it's an IT position, it's a technical position, but I already have an understanding that since I'm going to be working with the sales and marketing team, that I want to show the collaboration, the communication, and how I'm there to kind of support and help with their training as they use and adopt this technology. So it's very important to read what teams you report to, what teams you work closely with, so that you can show a form of collaboration and improved communication that you enjoy having with them. One thing that's key when I'm applying for a job is not just to say that I'm applying for a job for a new challenge or looking for something new, but I want to say that I'm interested in this position in this company specifically. So the job description usually outlines the name of the company that we're working with. And from there, I can either have more information within the job description or go to their LinkedIn profile and website and find a lot more information. This wealth of information about the company is very valuable because now I'm pinpointing. I'm not just saying that I'm interested in any position, but I'm specifically interested in your company in this position because now I know that you guys do this and you've grown that much and you show interest. It shows a little bit of excitement so that the hiring manager or the HR person will be more excited when they know that, oh, you've selected us specifically, and it shows a sort of excitement. So it's very important to take a moment from the job description to look at the company information, and usually companies put good information about them that you want to kind of underline in the interview as well. Different sectors of business have different terminologies and buzzwords and keywords. And if you mention some of those words, it makes a very big difference. If I'm applying to a company such as a bank, and yes, you're a great administrator, let's say system administrator, security administrator, or a Java developer, and I am the same. We have the same experience. However, you, because it's a bank, mentioned something such as SOX compliance or something such as PCI, that gets you a lot much further because it shows that you're aware of the sector, the banking sector, and credit cards information, the importance of it. If they have a branch in Europe and you throw a word out such as GDPR, it shows that you're a step further than I am. Similarly, if we're talking to something in the medical field, an insurance company, and so on, and you throw the word HIPAA compliance, it shows that you're a step further than me. So even though technically we're the same, knowing the sector, the business sector, and a couple of terminologies in there would impress the interviewer. So that's something that's valuable that you want to mention in the interview as well as add to your resume. Sector information is of a great value to us. Now, applying for a job, as you study the job description, there is what's called required skills and then there is preferred skills. Required skills, you want to make sure you check as much as possible. You already have the cheat sheet. You already know the list of questions that are coming in the interview. Might as well invest into it. So let's say there's 10 things that they're requiring, 8 technologies that I've worked with, and 2 that I've never heard about or worked with. Take a moment, for example, to get to know more about them. In IT, for example, one thing that's great is we can download a lot of the products 30 days for free. For example, I've done a lot of reporting, I've done SSRS, and I've done Power BI. This position, however, is looking for Tableau, and I've never worked with Tableau. Then let me go to Salesforce, download Tableau, and start playing with it. It's very similar to Power BI, it's very similar to SSRS, and I'm able to develop something. So when I go to the interview and it's a required skill, my answer is not yes, I heard about it, but my answer is yes, I've done XYZ with it. So always if something is required, try and take that extra step of working with it, especially if it's a technology that's accessible to us. And a lot of technologies, there's trial products or different kind of documentations where we could play with it. Always make sure that you can check through every required skill so that in the interview you can say yes, and you can give an example of what you have done, whether it's years of experience or a few days of experience, but that you have worked with it. It really goes a long way. Then we have the preferred skills. Preferred skills, again, ideally, if it's something that I can pick up, that I can download, that I can play with, always do that first. If not, at least, number 1, do some research on it. And number 2, show that you have similar skill to it. If you don't have the time to get into it, at least show that you have some similar skill to it. If they're looking for someone that has worked with Google Sheets and I've only worked with Excel, I don't just say that I've never worked with Google Sheets, but I can elaborate on how I've worked with Excel and if it's very similar to it. Or if I've worked with Google presentation, but I've never worked with PowerPoint. Similarly, when it comes to preferred skills, if you don't have the time to dig too much into it because they're preferred, at least be able to compare it to something that you worked with. That goes a long way. Different jobs have different settings. The job description tells us about it. And so it's very valuable to be able to express that. For example, if I'm going to be a database administrator, chances are it's going to ask about being on call every other weekend or at least once a month on the weekend. There's going to be a rotation of a cell phone or something. So this is something that we need to be aware of. Again, some jobs might require 20% travel, 40% travel. Others that are contract positions versus full-time positions, the contract might be 3 months to 6 months. So take a moment to read the job description so that when you're there, you're already clear about what it means. When they're requiring travel, when they're requiring remote work versus in the office. When you talk about remote work, that I'm comfortable with the technologies such as Slack, such as Microsoft Teams, where I can meet remotely, or Cisco, WebEx, and go to meetings and so on. So take a moment to look at the type of job that it is, the nature of what you're looking at, what the general expectation means, and some of the soft skills that go along with it as well. It might not be very attractive in the interview to start asking about benefits and different kind of benefits that I receive and so on and so forth. So that's why the job description usually spells that out or refers you to the website where you can kind of go in and look into their benefits and so on. It's not the best time to talk about it. However, in some circumstances where relocation might be very important to you or tuition reimbursement, then maybe that's something that you might want to bring up. However, normally you do not want to discuss those issues in the interview, and you want to focus on making sure that you're selling yourself, that they appreciate having you there, that you're showing that you're qualified, that you're interested in the position, you're the right candidate. You want to make it memorable for all those good things rather than asking about certain benefits. So always take the time to look at the job description to have those questions answered rather than asking them in the interview, unless of course it's something that's essential. Different certifications, different projects, different positions, even different software have different versions, and those are very specific. So in a job description, if I was to find that they're looking for an accountant that has certification 1, 2, 3, or I'm applying for a software developer and they're looking someone that worked with the version 1, 2, 3 of this software, then I want to make sure that I'm specifying that if I've worked with it in my resume and that I highlight it in my job in both in the resume as well as in the interview. Versions are very important. Numbers are very important. So if they make the effort to specify a certain release, a certain version, then you want to make sure that you highlight that amongst others in the interview as well as in your resume. Again, a job description is a God-sent gift to help us get the job. Basically, they're spilling. They're giving us a cheat sheet. They're saying, here's an exam and here's your cheat sheet. They're telling you exactly what they're going to ask you about. So as you look into the job description, always remember it's going to help you reshuffle your resume. So whatever their priority is, whatever they're repeated multiple times, whatever they have stressed multiple times, you start with it, with your summary and your bullet points in your resume as well. And during the interview as well, that you want to highlight and start with what they have stressed in the job description. What they make the highest priority, you make your highest priority as well. Best of luck. With this, we come to the end of this session, and we'd like to thank you for joining us. And also, don't hesitate to visit our website at learnitcoursesonline.com to leave your feedback and reviews. And also look at our events. We have a lot of free sessions, and we'd be more than happy to have you join at any given time, and also sign up with us for our newsletter. Thank you and have a wonderful time.